I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Alton, New Hampshire School Board. It is Monday, April 14th, 2025. The meeting is beginning at 5:32 p.m. The first item on the agenda is reorganization of the board. I would take nominations at this time for board chair.
I'll nominate Lauren Fruccio for board chair.
Second.
A nomination and a second for Lauren Fruccio to serve as board chair this year. Any other nominations? Hearing none. No voting. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, Madam Chair. Meeting's yours.
So we are moving on to the nomination of vice chair. Do I have any nominations?
I nominate Christy Wood.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Nomination of, what's that?
We did.
Oh. Did we say all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Oh, sorry. Nomination of board secretary, that was me, so I can't continue on, right? We need a new one? Do we have a nomination? It's a lot of pressure.
I nominate Ann Pierce.
Thank you.
I second Ann.
Lauren?
You don't want it?
No, I don't want it.
I'll do it.
Okay.
I'll make it, I'll nominate her. Board secretary.
All in favor?
Aye. Second. Okay, yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're gonna go through a roll call. We're gonna start with Heidi.
Heidi Duford. Janice Christian.
Matt Jazokis.
Tim Broderick.
Lauren Fruccio.
Christy Wood.
Eric Bono.
Ann Pierce.
Mike Fole.
And pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving on to the agenda review.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
So I just want to make a note on the agenda. Oh, okay, sorry.
So for this agenda.
Okay. All in favor of the agenda?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, passes. And so we're moving on to public hearing, and I'm going to open up public hearing at 5:33. Is there anyone here to speak on behalf of that?
The purpose of the public hearing pursuant to RSA 19820-B is for the board to accept and expend unanticipated grant funds, unanticipated funds. Generally, these are grant funds because every year when we create the budget that the voters approve, we include an estimate of how much we expect to receive from grant programs. We try to keep that estimate low rather than high for what I hope are obvious reasons. So each year when we receive more than we have in our appropriation, we actually need board permission to accept that money and spend it. You have the authority to do this because the annual meeting has previously accepted the terms of this RSA, which gives the board this power. This year, there's at least one, if not two, additional items. One is an unanticipated grant that later I'm going to talk about. We may or may not actually receive the money, but in case we do, we need your authorization to accept and spend it, and that's called an SAU consolidation grant. And is there another one at this meeting, or am I thinking, that's it for this meeting, sorry, I have 3 meetings this week. And you have a memo with a list of all of the fund items, yes, in the packet.
motion now.
It is entirely up to you. Some boards will open and close a public hearing and then make the decision, others will wait until they get to action items to make the decision.
I make a motion to approve 198:20-B to accept and spend unanticipated funds.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Close the public hearing at 5:35. Now we're moving on to approve the minutes from February 18, 2025.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from February 18th, 2025.
Second.
Yeah, I just want to make one change on the roll call for closing the non-public was 4 and 0. Deb? Yep, line 16. That's it. Okay, opening up to public input. Seeing none? Okay, moving on to informational items, school board correspondence, the magazine. I'm sure Deb, you have copies of this for everybody that may want them. Your front cover has, if you want to pass it around. Enrollments, looking back from last year, April 1st to this year, looks like 30 or so new students. It's really good. Financials, Heidi, do you want to speak to anything?
So I'm going to be sending out an email this week to staff to try to get everybody to get all of their funds encumbered for the rest of the year. So next month I'll have a better number for you. Just roll along. It looks pretty good. We're in good shape here. Do you have any questions?
I'll just take this opportunity because the night that you set the price of lunch for next year, I want it to be the second time you hear this from me instead of the first time, that we are running at an operating loss in the food service program of about $60,000 today.
For Alton, yeah, between 60 and 70. I do also on that note, as of today, I pulled out a student debt report and we're already at about 13,500. So add that on top of the loss that we were looking for.
So typically, at the end of the year, we'll ask the board to sweep money from the general funds, because we can't carry that. Our auditors won't let us carry that loss from year to year. So we'll ask you to use money from the general fund to backfill the operating loss in the cafeteria. This is why it's important when we set the price of lunch, we think about, I know everybody wants school lunch to be as affordable as possible for everybody, but we also need to think about this end of it when we go to budget committee hearings and the public and say that the school budget's not paying for lunch. In the end, when this happens, it does a little bit. Right? We just backfill that loss out of what our funds that were originally collected from taxation.
So it sounds like we may be looking at raising the cost of lunch for next year.
I always try to get you to.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough topic.
Cost, we've had pressures on labor costs, and we've had to give reasonable raises and things like that. It's a tricky thing for the board to figure out. It's nice not to have to do it, but it is one among all the good news in your financial report. It's that one little item that's just a tiny trouble. June 9th. We set the price of lunch for next year, usually.
June.
Buildings and grounds, Sean was gonna be here, but he's had something come up, so we can talk quickly about it. You'll see in here, there's we have a bid for one of the projects that we're looking to do for insulating the cafeteria walls for soundproofing. I know it's brought up a lot by staff and students that it's super hot. So they came in, they took some pictures.
Is that what it would hopefully reduce, like, wildlife? Or is it just more engineering?
Well, it depends on what we decide to do. I think how many we add, you don't have to add them all at once. So if you add some, you do a little bit here, a little bit there, you can bring it down.
Could be a 50 to 60% reduction in the echo, the time, with the echo, yeah, the background noise that builds up, it's supposed to be within like 1 second, 1.5 seconds, and with nothing like that room has, it's like 2.5 seconds, so there's a lot of like bounce. So it would cut that down to a respectable level. It'll still be like loud, but it won't be like.
Are these the ones that have the, you can put stuff on them too?
Yeah, that quote had some of them designated for,
This is X?
yes, this is the next.
So you
Some
can,
of them were bulletin board style, so you can
still
just
put
tack,
stuff.
tackable, hang things on them.
And would you think, would we do them all at once, or would you try and do them?
So your job is to tell us what you want, our job is to find the money. So in my report tonight, there's an additional discussion on some other capital items that we will work on finding the money for between now and June. So unless you feel like this is something that needed to be done other than as a summer project, which is how we would probably approach something like this, we'll look to fund it rather than, I think I heard there was some kind of offer of a donation, but it's a lot of money. We could probably do it.
Yeah, there's another page missing, it was
Yeah.
around 9,000.
I had just under 10, but I put 10.
Principal report. As you can see, the winter months were very busy at Alton Central, with the biggest event being welcoming back Mr. Russ Perrin to our gym, and thanking Mr. Cappuccino for his dedication to our students during Russ's absence. It's pretty incredible to see that happen. We had a wonderful Super Bowl day for our staff and appreciation for all they do. We are very happy to announce that we have enrolled 19 new students since December across the grade levels. That's pretty significant. The students were involved in many activities such as multiple school dances, a phenomenal ski season, music festivals, expansion of our choral program, and their latest enrichment program being pickleball. It's being led by Sherry Shaw and Juliet Poirier. 16 students have joined this after-school program. With regards to our academic and program development, we have established RTI team as well as an MTSSB team, and we started doing training and looking at our inventory of the tier 1, 2, and 3 services that we offer to our students, and helping our staff understand tier 1 and aligning it across the building. And we continue to work with Mike Anderson in leading great learning to enhance student voice and choice, and having strong relationships built with all of our students. Last on my report, you can see that I would like to invite a discussion around a proposal to allow students to wear hats in our 5 to 8 grades. Presently, students pay $1 to wear hats on Fridays. We are suggesting that we allow hat wearing without a fee on any given day. Some of the things that I've encountered during my time here is our middle school students are struggling to find their identity. There have been many times, not just 1 or 2, many times where 7th or 8th grade or even 5th and 6th grade boys have gotten a haircut that mom thought was fantastic on a Saturday, and on Monday they are subject to some pretty extreme ridicule, and if they had the opportunity to just wear a hat, that would solve a lot of their emotional crisis. In addition, many students come into the building in the morning, into the gym or in the cafeteria, they're immediately encountered with somebody telling them to take off their hat before they're even greeted, hello, how are you today? And they're being written up for having a hat on in the gym or the cafeteria and haven't even reported to homeroom yet. So this is something that I'm hoping the board will consider to allow our students to wear hats in grades 5 to 8.
I make a motion to change the current hat policy to allow students in grades 5 through 8 to wear hats without fees on any day.
I'm concerned that you're changing the policy in the middle of the year. I'm not sure that sets a good precedence.
This is something I'd rather start.
We can start it in the fall.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no need to start it immediately. I would put it in the handbook for next year and allow it for.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, the dollar kind of bothers me, to be honest with you. I mean, I know it's not a lot, but it's still to come up with it every
How does the faculty feel about kids wearing hats?
I don't think they have an opinion on it other than that they follow what's in the handbook. So if it's in the handbook, they're very, strict in enforcing it because it's in their handbook. If it wasn't in the handbook.
Have you asked them at all?
I've had mixed reviews. Some people think it's okay and some others don't. I think it has a lot to do with what you experienced as a child growing up and how things were approached at that time. It's very hard to change something that's been ingrained in you, especially if you're coming from a background where it was meant to be disrespectful to have a hat on in school. And I understand that. I mean, I was
How
raised.
do you feel about just doing away with the dollar now for the rest of the year? And keeping the rest the same? Would that be still a change in policy?
So you're suggesting they just, Fridays would be a hat day?
Yeah, it's a fundraiser.
It's a fun, it's not a.
It is a fundraiser.
Where's the dollar, it's not, where's the money go?
And
Things like NHS, MHS.
I don't see waiting as a benefit. If we're gonna change the policy, I think we should change it now. But I think that, especially because that's what we did with high school, and that's what we did with Barnstead, we changed it in the middle of the school year.
I know a lot of the faculty in the high school weren't happy with the change in the middle of the year. That's one of the reasons I bring it up now, for a couple of reasons. They didn't, the vast majority didn't like kids wearing hats, and they also didn't like the idea of changing the policy. Don't forget, they're enforcing the policy. Then literally the next day, they're not enforcing it. And, to do that with a student, they're putting themselves out there. And then all of a sudden, the next day, it's no, it doesn't matter anymore. Well, if it doesn't matter now, why does it matter so much the day before? So you catch these teachers and get caught in this bind.
I do think it should be, is there a reason why only 5 through 8?
Most of our younger students don't wear hats in
If
general.
they don't wear hats, then I think we should at least open it up to the whole school. I think that would be fair.
I'm more than happy to entertain that idea that that's what the board would like to do. I'm specifically talking about our 5th or 8th graders because of the ridicule and what they experience socially and emotionally.
Yeah, I would go back to, would it be in the principal school, I would go off her recommendation. I would probably like to see it stay at 5 that's what she feels comfortable with. That's kind of what I would.
And I have spoken with students regarding this. They understand that hats are not to be worn when they're doing the pledge, national anthem, if there's an assembly, they know that there are times when they have to take off their hat.
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of feeling like keeping it as Hat Friday till the end of the year and then changing next year would be,
I think I'm on board with that.
and do away with the dollar. I know it's fundraiser, but
Yeah.
we can find something else.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Back to not changing the policy in the year, I'd probably stay with the dollar for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I understand
Not
that too.
changing,
Yep,
not
I
changing things,
understand that.
yeah. So I wouldn't change anything this year, continue as is, start fresh again in school year next year.
Sure.
I'm not
I don't have any Fridays.
No, it really isn't.
I'm not a big proponent of wearing hats in school regardless. Just my personal experience, I think they should. But I do think that it happened at the high school, it happened at Barnstead, and I feel like that would be fair for the kids to have the same rights to wear them.
Okay, so we made a motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
No.
With the amendment to
My motion was to change it.
in mid-season.
Right.
Right.
Right,
We're gonna-
so let's be clear on what we're agreeing to here.
Yeah.
We'll change it next year. For
So
starters.
we're gonna do away with the
we'll do away with the dollar.
No, we wouldn't.
Keep the policy the way it is.
Right. But the motion on the floor at this point is to change. So let's vote on that. Correct. And then we'll make another motion.
All in favor of changing that policy?
Right, correct. No, yes.
Okay.
I make a motion, okay, so that motion failed.
Right.
So I make a motion to keep the policy the way it is for the remainder of the 24-25 school year with a change proposed for the 25-26 school year to allow hats in grades 5 through 8 with no donation.
Second.
I don't know. You tell me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Second.
You tell me.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
The change will be reflected in this meeting and for next year.
Technology, do you have anything else, Janice?
I do.
Okay.
One second. 19 students since December, what, is that just kids moving here, or wait, what's the?
So kids moving here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
And some kids coming back that were homeschooled.
Yeah, that's gonna be nice.
School garden and grant progress. You wanna talk about that?
Yeah, Tim
And Expo?
Yeah, I don't know if the board had questions as far as the outdoor classroom,
This board, most of their entirely wasn't here.
so they're not aware of it.
When they accepted the grant.
Okay,
So most people knew, most might not even know what this is.
sure. So you haven't heard anyone talk about outdoor classroom? Okay, I wish Courtney Levitt was here. Of course, she'll say, I wish I wasn't there to talk. So Courtney Levitt and myself and some other staff and administration put in for a grant. And I believe it was about 1,300 or so, somewhere around there, towards for plants for an outdoor classroom. So we're looking at the space that's outside the grade 5 wing, just straight on the front of the building here, and putting in an outdoor classroom. And we want to specify classroom, so a learning space, not a playground, not a recess, because obviously we want to be aware of neighbors and whatnot. So the grant that we did receive is for plants only. So we did work with, we've talked with Cameron, so they gave us some prices on plants. We have a design that I proposed for that outdoor area. It has 3 separate learning areas. Mr. McDuff and some of his kids started building a pergola, which will go in one area, so that seating area, there'll be like a patio in the middle. And then we're looking at kind of like an amphitheater, like in the corner. So basically like 3 different learning spots for classes to go out there. I've worked with some students to get some bricks out there. Actually, my wrestling team helped me, I think, lug about 2,000 bricks or something out there. So again, we have the grant provided for plants. So one thing that we've done is reach out to businesses, local businesses, for donations. Last year, the expo raised, I think, between $700 and $1,000 to put towards it as well for materials. So we'll have brick pathways out there, native plants, the pergola, as I said, and then, hopefully that area grows. Courtney Levin and I did go to Gilmington and look at their outdoor classroom. So I can share all the minutes from all of our, we've had a bunch of meetings. Actually, we're meeting tomorrow because we have to start talking about breaking ground. I feel like it's been such a long winter, we haven't been able to do anything out there. And obviously, one of the goals is to get as many kids involved as possible, right? Because we want them to be part of that process and, moving dirt, putting in plants. And then obviously the long-term goals, we can add to that over time. We can have a place for kids to go out there, read, write. Again, we'll have all native plants. One of the gardens out there will be a monarch, specifically for monarchs. I think they call it a monarch way station or something like that. I forgot. I have all the documentation. I can share all the minutes or the notes with all of you if you're interested, actually.
Are you looking for a motion tonight or just
No,
information?
the board accepted,
Yeah.
allowed us to accept a grant 2 years ago. You might have been here.
Yeah, I think so.
Probably the only one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been planning and developing, but I think we're getting close to.
Yeah, yeah.
plans.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we have, you know, there's a lot of, again, you have the funding from the state, the grant, which is great. And again, you know, they tell you it's just for plants. So you think about building an outdoor classroom and it's like, all they give you is for plants. It's like, well, you know, if you look at that area out there, it's just barren grass. So how do we make this come alive? So we'll be looking, obviously, donations, and just, yeah, so man hours and whatnot. But we're getting there. Just a matter, like I said, it's a long winter and it was a process. We've had lots of meetings, lots of input. And like I said, we're meeting tomorrow as well. So hopefully we have some developments on when we can start getting the work out there. I know one thing that we looked at in the winter or fall was trying to get a B&G to get out there, just using their tractor to kind of scrape away some of the earth so we can get some of those pathways built. Just didn't happen just because the weather makes it tough. So I can share that information with you, but it's looking good. And like I said, hopefully we have a great place for kids to go outside and do some learning. And, you know, there's plans to grow with individual garden beds potentially for each grade that they can have the flexibility to go out and grow something as well. So just a long process, but we'll get there.
Yeah. You need any help, you got it, good job.
All right, Eric, we're done. Thank you. Michelle, you can wear a hat out there if you want. Sorry.
You might have to take.
Sorry, that was funny.
Anything on the expo that you know?
Yeah, I will. Yes, Expo is on there as well. I just brought with me, so you guys, just a little bit of information. It's the registration paperwork that's available for the kids. So if you want to take one and just pass those down. So yeah, some of the board might be new to the Expo. So this will be year 3. I think since COVID, so I started the Expo 3 years ago. It was after COVID, I was asking my son about like community events, and he's like, we haven't done anything. So I was like, all right, let's spark something up again. So prior to COVID, we had science fairs and whatnot, and I think a lot of parents will agree that the science fair became more about time with your kid, how much money, and then I found in judging other science fairs in other schools, it came more about Googling for cool things instead of what really inspires you. So the idea behind the expo is to have kids share what they're interested in, what they're good at. Because we have a lot of kids in this community that maybe excel at something outside of school. So maybe they're struggling with reading or writing or math or science, whatever it is, but when they go home, they are good at something, and I want kids to have that opportunity to say, hey, I'm passionate about this and I'm good at it and I want to share it. So on that night, kids can put on display whatever they do. They don't have to stand there all night. I know a lot of parents are worried their kids have to stand there. They don't have to do that. So the main goal is that kids can share they're good at something. And then the second part of that event is I invite speakers to come in from different areas so kids can talk to them and see that if they want to pursue an interest and turn into a career, they can do it. So like we had a photographer last year, so you know, for kids who are into photography, talk to him, and he can say, hey, you know, I had to be good at math to get here. So I always try to tell the presenters to sneak in all those things like public speaking or whatever it may be. And then the other part of that is just raising funds. You know, it's a donation to enter. We gave the senior center money to build a garden, canned goods for end 68 hours of hunger. So this year it's May 15th. It's a Thursday night. You're all obviously invited, and I'll send that out to all of you to come and see all the great stuff that's going on. We have the cheerleading team, the wrestling team, the robotics team. So we have wildlife encounters. I'm still reaching out. I think I emailed Friday like 20 more presenters, trying to find someone to come in and do something different for those kids that have different hobbies. Unfortunately, right now we have, I think, 25 kids signed up, which, if you do the math, it's a real small percentage of our school population. And I always joke with the kids, I'm like, I hope we're doing better things besides sitting on our phones and playing video games. I always joke, like, aren't you good at anything? So I'll take any parent that wants to kind of nudge their kid and say, hey, you're good at this, you should share with other kids. You know, and let them know that you're good at it and be proud of that. So hopefully I get some more kids to you know, share what they're good at. Obviously, the night is open to anybody, but I'd like to see, you know, I'd like to see every kid show what they're good at.
Are you working with anyone to ensure that this is sustainable? Should there be any change in staff? Because we would
Not at the moment.
We would hate, I mean, I would love to encourage that from administration. So that this continues. I thought you did a great job.
Thank you.
You had a ton of presenters, and I thought that it was nice that it was really what the kids were interested in. And I would love to see it be sustainable and get people involved so that it doesn't go away. Should there be changes?
Yeah, I'd like to see, you know, I think, I don't know, it was last year, the year before, I think Tim invited some of the admin from Barnstead, and even the high school, just to come and show, like, even at a high school level, this is something, you know, it'd be more of a, maybe a career type job fair, but I'd like to see more schools do something where it's, you know, it's about what kids are good at, you know, and you could find the academics and a lot of that stuff as well, but if anything, yeah, no, we try and promote as many of the local businesses as we can. I think I've contacted almost everyone in the New Hampshire League of Craftsmen. They're tired of me emailing them. I'm always looking for presenters, so we'll see. Thank you. I don't know if you have anyone who has questions about it.
So after the 2 years ago, I think the first one, when it was the executive board of the Barnstead Teachers Association that came over and walked around, they've started holding not the same event, but some different events where the members of the Teachers Association volunteer their time. They do a math night for families, they do a game night. It's different. They do a series of things instead of one big thing. But, you know, I've been here and I see, I think, virtually every teacher covered by the ATA agreement volunteering their time here during the expo. So I imagine it's more than sustainable as long as the teachers are aligned.
Yeah, the staff did a great job volunteering. Everyone manned a different classroom, and you know, our author's coming back. We had Matt Forrest, who's an author. Actually, he's going to be here tomorrow, so there's some great things that came out of it as well. And hopefully a kid, you know, the goal is hopefully a kid leaves and they're like, hey, I can actually do something with this. You know, I don't have to be a doctor or an engineer or whatever else, right? So, all right, thank you. Appreciate the time.
Janice, has anybody given any thought to giving the kids some sort of extra credit for doing this, participating in this activity?
I don't believe that's happened in the past.
Yeah, I don't know, I'm just wondering, you know.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I tried to make it very clear to staff, like, I don't want this to be anything about school in a way, because I had a teacher once like, oh, we can do a project. No, because anything coming from a teacher is not going to be a kid's sincere interest, right? So a teacher can say, oh, we're all going to do this and put it in there. It's like, no, because a lot of times as teachers, we do projects, but that's not, you know, if a kid likes to ride their motorcycle or dirt bike and you do an acrostic poem about spring, that's not the same. So I really don't, we do offer incentives. You know, the PTSA has donated some gift cards, so there's lots of raffle prizes in there. I think last year we had over $3,000. This year I'm at like $1,500 in donations for tickets. So kids can put in for raffles. The kids that enter, I put into like a smaller raffle for gift cards from PTSA. But I don't want the academics to kind of taint what the kids are interested in, if that makes sense. All right.
Don't want their academics to get in the way of their education?
No, and what they're interested outside of school, right? Because that makes sense? Yeah. All right.
Thanks, Darren. You're welcome. Moving to Matt, your technology report. Do you want to speak to anything in your report?
Not unless someone has any questions about it.
Does anyone have any questions for Matt? It does sound like you've been doing a lot of training.
Yeah, we did training, working with Matt Jazokis and tech committee. We basically have the scope and sequence of technology skills. I guess I can. So we set up a scope and sequence of technology skills for next year and how we're going to go about from K through 8 technology and then into the high school. So during our PD day, we sat down with Corey Hempel from here, Phil Jinta from Barnstead, and Emma O'Neill from prospect, and we basically plotted out how we're gonna go about teaching this for the following year. So after that, we did some Google certified educator level 1 and 2 training for Phil and Corey, and I had Emily help with that because she already has those credentials, and she has to get 5 different training sessions before she can apply to be a certified trainer. So she did 3 sessions with us, and she has to do 2 more. And Corey already took one of her exams and passed, so she's now a certified level 1, and she's going to be taking the level 2 exam soon. And this is just to help prep them to basically teach the technology skills with the students, and then all that will be reinforced in the classroom with the classroom teachers.
Is the RFP that you're waiting on the one that's going to replace PowerSchool?
Yeah, that's for the SIS, and we're going to talk about that tonight too.
Thank you. Any questions from Matt? Matt, is this you?
Yep. So in your board packet, you have the trimester 2 data dashboard. Some of the information is similar to trimester 1. If you look at the scores for SAS, New Hampshire SAS will start taking place the first week of May. So we'll be getting that data probably later in June or in July, some preliminary data. Star reading and math scores from our K through 8. Again, we're in the process now of really starting to track the individual students from fall to fall, winter to winter, and spring to spring. Again, typically, a student will make about a 50-point gain from fall to spring. So we'll be looking at that not only as a grade level, but also as individuals. The more data we get, the better off we can track the individual and understand where they're going. We continue to track athletic participation as well as co-curricular activities. Again, research shows when kids are involved, they tend to do better academically as well as behaviorally. So as far as athletic participation is going, it's been pretty consistent this year in terms of the numbers in each of the seasons. And again, we updated the co-curricular activities that are being offered, so there's a wide range of opportunities for our kids who aren't going to get involved in athletics, which is great as well. Attendance rates for our faculty and our students. And then I want to draw your attention to the discipline statistics from October through March. As you can see from previous years, the numbers are down from this year in terms of the overall number of discipline issues, and I think part of that has to do with the variety of things that we're doing here. The restorative practice piece has been received quite well from many of our teachers as well as our students and parents. Really kind of look at those individuals and teach them as we go through it. As you can see, a lot of the behaviors are in the classroom. And so when we think about, Janice has talked about leading great learning with Mike Anderson, student choice, student voice, and then building those relationships. When we look at classroom management, things of that nature, if kids are connected with the teacher, they feel like they have a voice, typically classroom behavior is in line. So we'll continue to work with him. He'll be here again one more time this year, and we've already started mapping out what that work looks like next year. One of the things that I'll be bringing to you in trimester 3 are our core values. We have not assessed them this year, partly because the faculty and staff, along with the administration, has changed to align with Prospect Mountain. So we have the same core values pre-K through 12. So this trimester will be the first time we've been using trimester 2 to work with the kids and talk with them about what the new core values are. So we'll assess them at the end of, or in May, right before the end of trimester 3.
These 2 pages?
The discipline report is positive. We want to start there. The discipline is lower than it's ever have been, ever has been, whatever I'm trying to say. I mean, that's a huge positive. It's a little disconcerting that no one made typical growth in any grades for STAR. We need more STAR now.
50s for the whole year, so this is halfway through. So in the 20s, if it's really linear, we would work something in the 20s. There are a couple of grade levels that stand out. So I wanted to bring these 2 pages to your attention too. One of the reasons we asked to start using the STAR assessments 3 times a year, and last year was the first full year, this is the second full year of doing this, is so we had something in addition to the New Hampshire SAS scores, the state high-stakes test, only given in the spring, grades 3 through 8. It just, sure, data is useful, and this data can be referenced against a state average, and that makes it useful. And we are below the state average, which is not where we want to be. Having something like STAR, though, what we can begin to do, and when we get the next set of results, and we have 2 years' worth, we can really start to dig into it, is this shows you average score by grade level. But in order to get that, we have every student's score. We can sort that out, not just average by grade level, but average by classroom. So if we know that at a given grade, typical growth in reading from fall to winter was 23 points, we can actually see, well, that was on average 32 points in this classroom, 28 points in this classroom, but 11 in this classroom. And that doesn't necessarily mean there is not good teaching happening in that room, but it might mean we need to look at some other things.
Maybe make up a class, it could be a.
Right, there could be a lot of effects, so you need to be really careful with this kind of data. It's not a weapon. But it can be extremely useful and extremely powerful at helping us figure out what questions to ask. And we are on the verge. I think this year, when we have complete data for this year, we can start to ask those questions. And that should be extremely helpful. I believe we can then work backwards to the SAS scores and try to figure out why it is that this school, not just recently, but kind of chronically, the students don't meet proficiency levels at even the state average. It's a little bit baffling. I would expect that to happen in this community. And I know that it happens in some, what I would consider similar nearby communities. So it's something we have to get to. I'm hopeful, other than just say, proficiency, which nobody really even, I don't know exactly what the state uses to establish proficiency. It just doesn't have meaning. The way something like, we're assessing Johnny's ability to read, and we're doing it 3 times a year, we can see real growth. We can see, which students are really exploding and blossoming, and who's struggling. And hopefully we can make meaning from that so that we see the results in our state testing.
Eventually, you'll have more students studying each student.
We sure will. Yep. And that means, sorry, Mr. Smolin, that means we can look at a cohort that was in 4th grade last year that's in 5th grade this year, but we can also look at 4th grade last year and 4th grade this year, 5th grade last year. And we can, that can be really helpful. Right? We're trying to figure out maybe there's something about a group of kids, right? You hear that from teachers all the time, well, this class is a little different for whatever reason. Sometimes it's true.
Sometimes.
And just one last thing, the literacy committee met tonight, so prior to this meeting, and we have one other meeting in May. In June, we'll have a subgroup of the literacy committee coming and presenting to the board to work through what we've done this year, the data that we've collected, what the next steps are as we move forward with literacy.
Also, we've had weighting change, last year we started this and didn't have weighting as part of their studies, so I'd like to see the difference between winter and spring. For this year, we haven't had it in when, as it's appropriated for.
Yeah, so first, there's an audit report in your packet. It's not our annual audit, it's a federal grant administration audit by the State Department of Education. I think it's really important, and what I wrote about in my report that I will read to you is, if you go to NHSBA training, they should, I hope, they focus on the 3 biggest or primary responsibilities of school board: policy, financial management, and then hiring, supervising, superintendent, and appointing other certified staff. That financial management part is hard because you're not in the business office seeing what we do with, what amounts to $30 million a year across our schools. So these audits are really important. They have to be shared with you, you have to know they've happened, you have to know what the findings are, and you have to know that we've submitted corrective action plans. I'm stressing this because if you've been paying attention to our west, but in the region, there's a district that just realized that they hadn't had even an annual audit for 3 consecutive years, and nobody did this. You cannot do that. These findings aren't a big deal. These are things that we can do very easily. In fact, one of the policy things is probably in your action items tonight. We have to add domestic preference language to our RRPs and purchase orders, which simply means we have to notify all of our vendors that if all other conditions are equal, we will buy a United States made or provided service or product over foreign made or provided good or service. So they're pretty basic, but again, when we get findings in an audit, you need to know about it. And I think our corrective actions are due this week in a day or two. And very simple, very simple. Title programs and grant allocations for next year, item number 2 on my report. And I enclosed the letter in your packet that we received, Debbie enclosed, I should say, the letter that we received from the Department of Education in your packet. It used to be that Alton received federal grants and Barnstead received federal grants, and the high school did not receive federal grants because it's not an LEA, a local education agency or authority under the federal definition. At some point that changed, and I'm guessing it changed because there were 3 different offices that might have found it difficult to manage. You know, if I were at the high school, I'd have to say, hey, please send me some of that Title I money, for example, and somebody in Alton or Barnstead might say, I prefer not to, or something like that. So I wasn't here, I don't know what happened, but the Department of Education changed it so that grants were being administered to each of the 3 SAUs. Just like we undergo audits, the State Department of Education has been audited by the Federal Department of Education, which told them, you shouldn't be doing this. So starting next year, all of our title grants at least will be administered only with allocations to Alton and to Barnstead, and it'll be up to us to share that money appropriately, either based on need or based on student count, or however we do it, with the high school. It'll be easier now than it would 5 years ago, because we have one central office. So I don't think this is a big deal for any of you. We do have some questions about whether or how this might affect the REAP program, which is not administered by the Department of Education, or the National School Lunch Nutrition Program, which is administered by the Department of Agriculture federally, but by the Department of Education in our state. So we've asked them, and what usually happens in a case like this, we ask the question, they tell us they don't know the answer, and they'll try to find out. We wait a few weeks, we ask again. So we'll let you know when we learn something, but we don't know about those rules. Third, a standards-aligned field trip plan. I shared a little story in my memo about a grade level team that had sort of, I think, not realizing what they might be doing, decided, oh, let's not do a particular field trip this year, but it turns out that field trip is aligned to the state standards for the grade level. It's actually customary that pretty much every, I'm not saying which grade out of kind of just to be kind to everybody, I don't think it's important. But most grades in the state go on that trip, and in fact, it's a trip to the State House, and I got a call from one of our state reps saying, hey, such and such a grade from one school was just here, it was awesome, when's your other school coming? And we realized that we don't have a written field trip plan here. It really needs to be developed with the teachers, so it'll have to happen going into next year. But I've given you a sample because it's something that our office has already done working with our elementary school. The reason this sample might be useful for you, and the details will be different, right? The teachers here will develop their own, this is what we do. They probably already have traditions, right? At various grade levels, we want to maintain and honor those. But also, these connections to curriculum help when, Kristen, you and I went this year to a budget committee meeting, right? Whoever does that next year with us, you know, when we talk to the public, we talk to a budget committee about why do you spend money on field trips, for example. We should be able to talk about how those experiences outside the school and outside the classroom support our learning standards, right, that the legislature has given us and made us responsible for implementing. You'll also see in the sample I've given you, it makes budgeting really, really easy. Because we have the cost of every trip, including transportation, including admissions, and we will, I have already asked the principal and Matt to work with the faculty at the school to try to get something like this ready going next year. It's not a huge lift, but it's, it's worth a few minutes to get it right. Fourth and finally is my discussion of capital items, so we already talked a little bit about soundproofing in the cafeteria here at ACS. I also, we've got 8 unit heaters remaining. Sometimes you're tonight, but we still have time. We'll see you in June. We've got 8 unit heaters remaining to be replaced. Remember that? They froze. Some broke. They all need to be done. We're spending about $24,000 each for those. Would be great to be able to do 4, but we at least would like to be able to do 2. Our capital and also includes finding a time and the money to replace the floor in the music and art wing, the hallway and classrooms, up where the vinyl tile is lifting. So we'd love to be able to get that done, and then there's the soundproofing, which on this list is actually the least costly item. On your action items tonight, and in a separate memo from me, is the SAC merger agreements. Between tonight and tomorrow night, I'm going to suggest a variety of uses that you might consider if we actually receive that money, either before June 30th or later next year. Either way, we could make work. And these items could be part of what we do with some of that money. We also, by June, we will have your actual unencumbered surplus amount for this year. And although there are always mixed feelings in communities about whether something should be approved on a warrant article versus voted by the school board, responsible maintenance of the facility prevents those surprise cost of warrant articles in the future. And I think with the planning that we've done, building up funds for boiler replacements and things like that, I've heard this community be pretty supportive when the board is proactive. You're not spending millions of dollars at whack, but you might spend 50 or 75,000 on things that go over things. So that's sort of a precursor to June's meeting, and I listed it as a discussion because if you have things you want us to look at or questions about any of this, giving us the next couple of months to work on would be helpful. Or any other items in the school that you've seen or know about, or just want us paying attention to. You should anticipate that we ideally will be asking to do 4 unit heaters, that floor, and the soundproofing project this summer, and we'll try to identify appropriate funding sources for you, which would be made. We also have to do procurement by law. If you're encumbering money in this fiscal year that we actually won't spend until next fiscal year, you're not supposed to just make up a number. Your encumbrance is supposed to be based on real procurement that complies with all of our procurement procedures. So we will do that in the next 60 days.
Action items. Unit ventilator replacement bid.
Hey! It's like it all connects.
No one came back to you, just this one bid, so you want us to,
Yes, this is the one that has mailed, so Mr. Broderick said we had 8, well, by fixing this, we'll have 7. Which we don't have a choice. This will be done over the summer.
Make a motion to approve the bid for the unit ventilator replacement for a total of $20,440.
Is it?
all in favor?
Wasn't that $500 additional on something? It must be something else.
Yes. $500 was added because this was from January and it took a while for procurement and then it to the board.
All right, so that's in the 25, that's in the 25.4?
That's included in the 25.
Okay, great, that's all right.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it passes for unit ventilator replacement. ACS pre-K handbook.
Make a motion to approve the ACS pre-K handbook.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, passes. Out-of-state field trips for grades 3 and 6. Looks like Miss Gilmette's going to your worthwhile kingdom for her class on May 29th.
Make a motion to approve the out-of-state field trips for grades 3 and 6. And the other one is going to Fairbanks and St. Johnsbury.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Both passed. This is the New Hampshire SU merger grant.
Chris, here, one of you want to talk about this? I'll try to be brief. So this grant was created by the legislature last year, and as sometimes happens, when these things go to the Department of Education, it takes them a while to figure out how to operationalize the grant. In fact, they still haven't, and the fiscal year ends June 30th. So we met with them a couple of weeks ago, and they told us to come up with an application that meets the requirements in the law, which we did, and it looks like this. I still think there's a chance, because this will be the first time they've done it, that they pump the brakes and decide they want to award the funds on a different schedule. But what they said 2 weeks ago was, submit the grant, we'll send you a check by the end of this year for the first of 2 payments, and then we'll send you a check next year for the second. The grant creates incentive payments for 2 years in the amount of $200 times the total number of students in your school system, where you have districts served by multiple SAUs, and you want to look at having those districts served by one SAU. You all, this board, you and the Barnstead board, the joint board, already have a shared services committee that's already doing that. You qualify for the grant, so it amounts to about $120,000 2 years in a row, so 240 plus a little for Alton, and just a little bit more because Barnstead has more students. For Barnstead, about 130 or so each year for 2 years. So about 520,000 total over 2 years across the whole system. And according to the legislation, these funds are unrestricted. Normally, when we get a grant, we have to write activities, have them approved by DOE staff, and then get reimbursed after we do the activities. That's not how these grants were written. These are unrestricted funds, which is why I'm talking about being able to do things like capital improvements at the high school, capital improvements here at this school. Some shared items like a common student information system. If we want that from pre-K, kindergarten through 12th grade at all 3 schools, we could cover the implementation costs for that out of this grant with half that money coming from Alton and half that money coming from Barnstead. So tomorrow night I'll have more of a rundown of what those things might be, but my ask tonight is that you vote to apply for the grant, let us send this in and see what happens.
So the idea, I'm sorry.
No, I'm just gonna make a motion to
I just want to
discuss it, go ahead.
So the idea is though, even though 2 different schools receive 2 different amounts, the idea is to pool the money and do things equitably amongst the 3 schools?
Yeah, so the way we would do it at the high school is in the JMA, capital costs are divided 50-50. So tomorrow night, I'm in the middle of a memo for tomorrow night. I know, shock. That it wasn't done a week ago. But that capital items would be divided 50-50, and then operating costs, like that student information system, for example, that's divided as an operating item under the JMA based on enrollment at the high school. So it's about 48% to Alton, 52% to Barnstead going into next year. It's pretty close. And once those, whatever the joint board wants to do at the high school, both boards want to do together at the high school, is established, whatever's left would come back here in June for you to encumber essentially any way you choose. This is not, I think this is important, especially as we talk to folks in the public here about this. This is not money that was collected through local property taxes that you should feel compelled to return. This is money we went out and found and helped the Department of Education figure out how to give us. and provided they come through and we receive it, it's money we should spend on schools. And if we're doing things like replacing floor that needs to be replaced with this found grant money, it's difficult to imagine too many people objecting to that.
So why isn't the high school included in this as far as a separate school?
So the number of students that the calculation is based on includes our high school students. So we are like counting all the kids, but we're getting an all grant numbers.
Okay, yep. That makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yes, go for it.
Make a motion to apply for the SAU merger grant.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Last day of school for ACS.
So it was the last memo I sent you, you received it earlier today, and you have a hard copy on the table, and I'd like you to take it from here.
I'd like to talk about the poll that was done, which we do in non-public.
Yeah, that's about the labor impact, which is a matter of collective bargaining and negotiation. You can definitely do that in non-public.
So then we want to table this until after non-public?
Yeah. Let's take this
Yep.
after, we can talk about that.
Okay.
And the calendar for next year.
So we still give you option one, option two.
And it looks like the difference is...
Option two has 180 days on it, which once we started talking about strict, strict conformity with the regulation, the ed rule says that we are supposed to schedule 180 days. You don't end up having the whole 180 days, but we are supposed to schedule 180 days for students.
So then I would propose option two. I would make a motion to propose option two for the school calendar.
I'll second it, so you can talk about it.
Thank you.
The other thing this did is it moved the first day of school to the Tuesday after Labor Day weekend.
In option two.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which was one of the other things that was
right.
important here.
As opposed to option one, which had the first day of school before Labor Day.
As we did this year.
And so this moves it to after Labor Day, and it gives the 180 days, which is required, right? It's required.
Why didn't you schedule the 180 days on option one? Why didn't you just?
I've played fast and loose with that in the past, is the truth, Eric, just to try to make the endpoints of the calendar work out.
Yeah, I just.
Yeah.
This is with the same start time and end time, this calendar? Starting at 7:45
I mean,
and ending at 2:50.
So if there were a change in the school day, it would be unrelated to the calendar. But the school day is connected to your transportation contract, your teacher's contract, your support staff contracts. Start and end times are sort of included in all those things.
And does this closely match accuracy in high school?
They'll be the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess the question I have is, looking at this notice from Tim, there's a discussion about doing something at the end of the school year for the elementary school, because they're putting in extra amount of time. Have I got that right?
Is that for this year? For this year.
Okay, well, if we don't change it, won't it exist again next year?
That's my question too.
So if we're gonna change it, we need to look at the calendar and that at the same time, I guess.
Right, should we wait until we figure out what we're doing this year before we look at next year?
Something, one of them's gotta be done first. I mean,
That's fine, I think that's fair, we can do that. We can table this too.
because you run into, going back and forth here. You gotta bring money.
I agree.
You can do that. Absolutely.
All right, table this too. Student information system.
So as alluded to earlier, Matt and I worked with Heidi to create an RFP to have one student information system. And Matt and his team went through the specs. We put out an RFP. We sent it to Alma, which is the system that the state has contract with. Infinite Campus, which is our current high school system, and then also Power School. So we sent it out to them specifically, plus it was posted. Matt received several phone calls from Alma and IC, and also a call from Power School stating that they were not going to bid on the system change. So we received both bids. They were comparable in terms of costs. On the sheet that you have in your board packet, kind of goes through the pros and cons of each of the two systems. Tim talked a little bit about the cost to transition both Alton and Barnstead. It's a $15,000 one-time cost to change it over. And then the yearly costs for Infinite Campus are similar to that of Power School. So we would all be under Infinite Campus. If we chose to go under Alma, that cost would be slightly higher, at around $40,000. But after talking with Matt and Tim, we feel like Infinite Campus is the way to go, based off of a lot of the things that they provide for us. One of them is training. Alma does 1 day. They actually train Matt in Jackson, and then their responsibility is to come back and train all the faculty and staff, whereas Infinite Campus will provide 6 days. They'll also have a full live date where we can kind of make sure that we have all the ducks aligned to that specific. The difference with Alma is that with state reporting, we'll have to kind of continue to do the state reporting as we do now, download it onto a spreadsheet and upload it, versus with Alma, it'll just pull directly from our systems. But we feel like with Infinite Campus, high school people like it. It's been pretty good for us. The reporting in terms of discipline, the reporting to, the learning management system, which is stuff we can upload our curriculum to, is a much better system.
And this would be effective for next year.
So that's a little fast for a student information system change, but our IT department is on board, and I think a lot of schools who have been with Power School are kind of feeling the same way right now. Like, if we can go, let's go. And then the prospect of having a grant to pay the transition cost kind of seals the deal.
What this will also do is, obviously, with having one system, for us, we'll have access to all of them under one domain versus going through 3 different systems. But also, all of the information that they start off in pre-K and K will travel with them all the way up through. Right now, we put information to Power School, and then when it comes up to the high school, it's mostly just demographic data, and there's not a lot of the other information that we'd like to have.
Right now, we pay an employee at the high school during the summer to pull 8th grade students' files and enter all the information into the student information system, as opposed to what we did between 7th and 8th grade, which was click promote, which we will be able to do.
Matt, have you noticed like any changes in the support from Infinite Campus at all, like with Power School going on the Fritz, like are they, as they're getting more customers, have you noticed any?
No, their support's still excellent. Yeah, their support is in country. Power School actually put theirs overseas years ago, and that has been a nightmare. So almost. But Infinite Campus, their support is excellent. Like, I get responses right away within a few hours for every ticket I've ever put in. I couldn't speak any higher. Probably the best support team I deal with.
And then the 6 days of PD training, is that computer-based training or is it in person?
I think a lot of it would be online sessions with but I have to clarify that. I think they are sending people for a few days and then other things, we've done this before where we have them online and we do a meet and we go over everything and ask questions. So we would be there obviously with that to assist people. As you can see on the sheet, there's so many more pros, I think, with going to IC. We already have a whole staff that have done IC for years and can also assist with questions. Another thing is at the high school a couple of years ago, we had a whole new guidance department. Everyone was brand new, never used IC before. They were all confused. after 1 year, they all said we would never want to switch back from IC. Linda Chef or anyone else on the guidance swear by IC now, and they would never even go back at Power School, and they are hoping we stay with IC. So
I make a motion to approve, I don't know. Infinite Campus for a new student information system.
And I second any of that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yeah.
Who would like to read them?
I make a motion to approve for second reading and adoption of policies DAF, EBCH, GBGA, IC, IGE, IHAM, JIHB, JLCGA, JLF, JLP, and KFD.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Opening up to public input.
Person. No.
Oh, sorry, skip that. Personnel.
So you actually have two personnel report memos. First is the faculty renomination. I gave you copies of the law last month around tenure and renomination of staff. So this is the renomination memo for all. Central School requires your motion and vote to reappoint these teachers.
I make a motion to renominate the professional staff as listed for the 25-26 school year.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
The second memo, we have two resignations of professional staff. We have two support staff resignations that don't require you to accept them. We have a support staff nomination also doesn't require any action by you. But the two teacher resignations, typically the board would accept with a vote.
Make a motion to accept the resignation of Deborah Dalton and Derek Papasino with regrets.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Just one question on that. Just the middle school, just kind of talk through how, middle school baseball coach is saying that's what baseball coach, how that's all going to shake out.
Yep. So my understanding, Eric, is that last year's middle school baseball coach is the first assistant this time and has some games that he can't make. So he and Jason worked it out with the other coaches that one of the two of them is always there. Jason's willing to be responsible. I'm sure it's not about money.
Public input. Do we have everybody up?
Good evening, Richard Shea. Just a couple of things I wanted to comment on, if I could. At our most recent election, I was kind of surprised at getting questions from several people regarding the program for regional attendance at our high school, which I thought was easy to explain. And then when I tried to explain it, I realized it's not that easy, and there's a misconception among many people that the out-of-town students are getting a 20% discount compared to our guys. Not the case, but it sounds that way. I realize it's not an ACS issue directly, but I would urge any of the board members that have the chance to talk this up with the public and explain it, to do so, because I'm sure that misconception is not going to go away without some education. Secondly, I want to express my appreciation for keeping your budget low, and my jealousy because our town budget got bounced and yours didn't. But we're going to try again next year. Third, I'm glad to hear a detailed discussion on the performance data and the use of it going forward. I took home and read through the Alton District Annual Report. There's a great deal of information in there on all kinds of programs. My wife, who's much more perceptive than I am, said to me, well, where's the information on the student performance? And I said, oh, it's in there. And then I couldn't find it. So perhaps going forward, now that there's more of a basis for data to comment on how we're doing, and hopefully the trend is up, you could include that in the next issue of the annual report. And lastly, and this is purely subjective, I haven't been to one of the board meetings here for a few months, and somehow this board just seems livelier, if you will, which I think is great. Whether it's talking about hats or programs or first day of school or whatever it is, I am encouraged, and I hope you continue to kick things around and kick up a fuss, and the voters will appreciate it. Thank you.
Anyone else? Closing public input. Future agenda items.
We'll come up with plenty.
Yeah, we talked about a bunch of this.
So Mike, I keep track on the agenda of what's been done and what questions came up. So we've talked a bunch about encumbrances. You'll see all of that. We talk about those capital items for sure. We'll know what's going on with these grant programs. We will tell you that we submitted our corrective actions on the federal grant audit, that were accepted, and we'll have spring started. Right? We'll have spring started in June.
Make a motion to go into non-public under RSA 91-A:3, I, A, and C.
All in favor?
Say B.
You do a roll call. Sorry.
You do B.
Roll call.
Yes.
Yes.